Welcome to the Uncle Jimmy and Cousin Donnie show, sponsored by the Beacon Tap. Tonight is episode number 41 for our guy, Robbie Grisano.
Yeah, perfect.
We actually had a lot of comments about Mr. Robbie Grisano being our guest for 41, but unfortunately, we have not heard from Mr. Robbie Grisano in quite some time. So hopefully he touches in.
He texted me this morning, to be honest with you. He said, "Can't believe you're not having number 41 on for episode 41." But listen, we've got a list of guys that are ready to come on the show every week. We can't just disregard the guests. I know that you shaved number 41 into your head for signature multiple years in a row. This is episode 41. We've got a program to run here. Okay?
That's right. Tell him to answer his phone over the last month, because he would have been episode 41.
That's not good. That's not good to not hear from him, Jim.
I hear you, my man. I hear you. But all is well in this world. How is Cousin Donnie doing this week?
Good, man. We're all good in the hood. I'm as excited to see that the Forest Park schedule was released today. Funny you texted me. I was going to shoot you a text, but we play each other every other week. We play indoors at your dome. Signature and Hex play we're playing again on the 10th. And what do you know it? Our first game is against Hex at Forest Park.
It's absolutely incredible how that works.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Awesome. And I've heard a bunch of people say, you're going to beat them indoors, and then they're going to show up and beat you outside. So it'll be fun to see what happens once it translates to outside.
Absolutely. No, I can't wait. The
It'll be
season
fun.
Be a couple weeks away. It's incredible. It's an awesome thing. So, we first off, before we get started, I want to just say hi to Mr. Wagner, Mr. Wags. Welcome to the show. Jeremy Doherty, welcome to the show. Hey, Mr. Randy Russ has joined. Welcome, Randy. We saw his interview today, right? It was posted with the SSA.
Yep.
So, I know Randy's awesome. He's close to my heart. One of my guys.
Right.
Always been.
Yep.
Taught me how to cut in about an hour, so I always give him credit for that. But an incredible player, as you can imagine. One of the best. Played on a lot of those teams. He's been mentioned on our show an absolute ton over the last couple episodes since the Hall of Fame and a lot of things that are going on. I know he just recently got into the University of Lewis Hall of Fame as well. So that's a
cool.
little fun fact about Randy Russ.
He gave us a little shout out during his interview as well on the SSA page.
Oh, nice.
And we love seeing that. We love seeing that stuff. Promoting the brand. That's
absolutely. We're all on the same page about promoting the game, so that's what
we're talking about.
But Tyrone Powell, welcome. Mr. Big Mick is welcome. Ryan, welcome. Brian, welcome. Angela, welcome to the show. Anthony Stacy, Big Mick's here. Dustin Peterson's here. Rod Bailey's here. So, guys, welcome to the Uncle Jimmy Cousin Donnie show, sponsored by the Beacon Tap. Tonight is episode number 41. Our guest is Mr. Brian Panek, the head of the Umpires for softball. I know he does the USSSA, he does the SSA, he does a lot of leagues across Chicagoland and so on. So I'm excited because how much I love umpires.
Hey, listen, if there's two people that are peas in a pod, it's Uncle Jimmy and an umpire. Yeah. So you guys always seem, you always seem to get along, you two.
Yes.
You guys umpires. We have umpire Blue Lou. There he is.
Our guy. Hopefully he's
doing an umpire that you get along with.
Yeah, he's been doing backflips. I've been seeing that. So None better than the backflip he did on our show about 3-4 months ago, which was
That
incredible.
was legendary stuff.
Legendary stuff. So awesome to see him watching the feed. Welcome to the show, Umpire Blue Lou. Thank you so much. But before we bring on Brian tonight, why don't we talk a little bit about what's going on in the softball world? We have our first tournament coming up, which is Dave Padilla, believe it or not, which is, I believe, April 20th.
Yep.
And then we also have the following weekend, we have Maddie Dozen, where I was able to spend some time with Maddie on Friday. He was telling me about the tournament. He says that majority of the major teams are committed, which is incredible.
Great.
So I know Dave Padilla tournament is in Burbank. Maddie Dozen's tournament is in Tinley Park on the south side. So both pretty much being on the south side. I know Dave's tournament is more like kind of people jumping on teams and having fun, which is nothing wrong with that. Maddie's more about the major game per se, a major game, which is it's a rostered event through the SSA. So we're looking forward to both. I think both will be incredible. Hopefully we get great weather. I know
that. Unfortunately, Maddie's tournament, yeah, I know. Like you're about to say, Maddie's tournament is unfortunately like plagued with rain. That tournament, it's a good time. It's a cool format. You're guaranteed 2 games in that tournament, from what I remember. The first one being like a qualifying game to see what bracket you kind of get into, and then Dave Padilla's tournament. I believe I'll be out there trying to see what team we'll be running with, but I know we've got some plans to be out there with those guys on the 20th, which it might be a little cold out there on April 20th.
Well, I mean, from my understanding, the next couple of days is going to be really cold, and then it's going to hop into the high 60s.
I hope so.
So I think we should be okay from the standpoint of, weather and things like that. Hopefully, keep fingers crossed.
Yeah, for sure. I know weather changes around here like crazy. So, but man, it's good to be out here.
How do you like my background, dude?
Yeah, where are you?
I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
Where are you, at the Vatican?
I'm at the Vatican. I'm actually at the Pope's office. So
perfect.
He might hop on the show tonight. So.
Yeah, all right. Well, I have no idea. Where are you actually?
French Lick, Indiana. Beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful town.
Perfect.
Love it. So it's incredible. But a lot of things going on, as you can imagine. But at the same time, I always have time for you, cousin Donnie.
I appreciate that, Jim. That's very kind of you.
Yes. But let's talk a little bit about Brian Panek before we bring him on. So for those that don't know Brian, like we mentioned, is the head of the Umpires. He does run a majority of the leagues. He's the one who basically appoints a lot of the umpires to the parks, game times, and so on. So I think it's going to be an incredible interview. I know that we both have a ton of questions.
Yeah.
Hopefully a lot of stuff that I think people are thinking in softball right now that we're going to bring up to Brian. And damn right, I'm not going to hold back.
Yeah. You don't typically hold back when you're speaking to umpires, in a good way. A lot of times you plead your case, and sometimes you overplead your case.
Yes.
So I know you'll be respectful as always, but you do love umpires. We know that.
Yes. So
we know that.
Before I bring Brian on, why don't you go to the crowd really quick? I see a ton of people have just jumped on. I saw that Jackson Perry jumped on. I also saw Rob Grisano watching now. So
is he number 41?
Number 41. We did bring you up in the show. I know I called you. You haven't returned a call. You haven't returned a text. We wanted you on. Brian and I, we've been talking for weeks. So you dropped the ball, Mr. Rob Grisano. 41. So
I love it.
Nick McKenney pointed that out this week.
He did.
He is absolutely right. So
he did.
But it's Robbie's fault, so it's not our fault. Remember
that. Is he replying in the Hex group chat at all either?
I haven't talked to him. No, he's been working a lot though. I know he's been working a lot. I know he's been doing a lot of things. He hasn't. Well, he hasn't showed up at all for the Dome, so I haven't really seen him. But Jackson Perry says Donnie Skilling. I love it. So
I love that comment. I can't really see anybody else that's jumped on. I could just see the comments. I was going to touch on Jackson Montgomery Perry calling me Donnie Skilling. That's great, because we love predicting the weather. We just pray for no rain in these next couple weekends, man.
I hear you. So Dan jumped on, Dean Pritt jumped on, Tim Dillon jumped on. Welcome. Joey Iggy. He's on. Our boy Ram's on. Welcome to the show. Grisano, as I mentioned. Mr. Jake Olson also joined the feed too. So why don't we, are you ready to bring Mr. Panek on the show? Are you ready? Are you prepared?
Yeah, ready. Good. Let's do it.
All right, man. I'm going to get him on the show here. Hopefully he's ready to roll. Mr. Brian Panek. There he is, sir. How are you?
Good, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well, man. We're doing well. I was just telling Donnie, I'm not holding back tonight on you, Brian. So I hope you're prepared.
When have you ever held back on me?
right. Brian, has there ever been a time where Jimmy didn't hold back?
No, there's been many times. We've been about 20 years going back.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brian, I wanted to say thank you tonight for taking time. I know, it's a 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. I'm sure you got other things to do than talk to us. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Also, I wanted to let you, ask you a quick question. Why don't you tell everybody about who Brian Panek is? Tell everyone what you do for softball and what you do for the game, and how you, I guess you want to say, subtract the umpires and get people involved.
I'd be happy to. Yeah, so going back, I've been umpiring on the umpiring side of things since I was 13 years old doing Little League. I actually was in charge of umpires for LaGrange Park Little League when I was in college. They didn't have anyone to volunteer at the time, and I was umpiring, refereeing basketball, soccer, even though it doesn't look like I played soccer back in the day. I did play soccer and that in high school. And that's a refereed all the sports. It was good money in college instead of a minimum wage job. Down at U of I, traveled to the local towns, worked at that point in time, and then I was in the Park District field, and that's what my degree is in, recreation administration, and then worked at Melrose Park. Veterans Park. This was my first full-time job over there, right out of college. Worked there for about a year and a half, and that's where I got hooked up with doing softball. Long time. John Yana, I'm sure many of you remember, Big John from Brick and everything. Great man. He was from LaGrange Park, umpired his kids as they were growing up, all three of them. And he suggested get out of baseball, start doing softball. Softball is a blast. You'll like it. Then John at Melrose Park started. He was assigned the leagues there. I got on board with him. When he was assigned, he assigned for over 30 years doing softball and basketball. And long story short, started umpiring for him, started doing major softball by the time I was 24. Got thrown into it very, very young at the time. And then John was getting ready to retire and moved down to Florida working for the Red Cross down there. And I kind of helped him out back in 2005 at that time. And then 2011 took over. He had enough of doing it for over 30 years. It's a time commitment. You're on call. If you're on bit not 24/7, but majority of the time you're on call. So took over all leagues at that point, and then being in the Park District field, I know a lot of people in a lot of the towns, and that being in the field and that. So right now I'm in Des Plaines. I run all their revenue facilities, superintendent revenue facilities for you golfers. The golf center in Des Plaines. That's where my office is out of. And
nice. That's a nice place.
Illinois. So we have a lot of upgrades coming up in the next 4 to 6 months. So looking forward to that. But that's how I got involved with softball originally. Umpiring, start to lower levels, and always played baseball, varsity baseball at Nazareth Academy. We were nowhere near as good as the #1 team in the state right now. 11-0 at the time, I think it is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were a 500 team back in the day when I played, and that. So, but want to stay around the game and love baseball and softball.
Well, so, I think it's an incredible thing. I think when you look at how people get into softball, it's just funny because when you start out, a lot of people don't know really about the major level, and then I feel like as you get more involved, and then you find out, you're like, man, it's almost like an addiction thing, right? It's like you become hooked on the game, and I think it just eats up a part of all of us. That's the competitive side of us, which I think is an incredible thing. So that leads me into my first question for you, Brian, is you mentioned about getting into umpires, becoming an umpire. What are the qualifications to I'm just talking 16-inch. I'm not talking 12-inch. I'm not talking, some of the other girls' softball or baseball. But just in men's softball today, is there any qualifications to necessarily ump a major or an A softball game per se? And if not, is there anything in the future in regards to training to hold, these umpires accountable for what they're doing at this level? Because there is a lot of money being spent, as you know. There's a lot of fundraising, a lot of sponsors, a lot of corporate money that's invested. So, as we're doing all that, I'm just wanted to ask you, what is the process per se behind, becoming an umpire at the major or A level?
Okay. Well, first of all, starting with umpiring in general, clinics every year could be more done with it, but we do clinics every year, on-site evaluations, obviously the tournaments and the pro level league. You're not seeing the majority of umpires. This year I actually have more umpires than ever before. I have about 60 on board right now. I normally have a crew of around 45.
Okay.
This year, but on the A level and the major level, you're seeing only about 15 to 20 of them for multiple. Some are not qualified yet, and that they're not good enough. And the other thing is they don't want to. There's a combination. There's some that are good enough that want to, but you're not going to see them. And others who have no interest in doing it for the extra money that there is. Rec league games, do 4 games, 1-on-1 counts, make more money and not hear anything. But that's more far and few between, because most umpires, they want to do the top level. I mean, they want to work the Forest Park Nationals. They want to do tournament champion. They want to do whether it's SSA or ASA, USA Nationals. They want to be out on the big games, and you want umpires who want to do that. So
right.
But there could be more done in the future in terms of training. It's just we need more umpires, and it's constantly looking for more umpires.
Right.
To do. Right now, it's better than it has been, no doubt. In terms of is now getting them trained and ready for the top level of softball.
That's good. That's good to hear that you have more. You have more than you've ever had. I know you put that post out not too long ago that you were looking for some people to just apply, and I'm glad that did that kind of spark a lot of interest when you made that post out there.
It does. I'm recruiting year round. I mean,
okay, that's great.
I try to give everyone a chance. They got not a chance at the high level, and I try to place umpires in games. Okay, they're ready to move up to the A or the major level, and putting them in a game where, again, an example, I'm not going to put them in a 45 signature game, their first major game out there, and doing that, putting them in a spot where it's a good fit, and going out there and helping them out to improve that, because it's better for everyone, for you guys as players, for me as an assigner, and that I want the best umpire. I mean, the better the umpire is, the less hassle I get, the less hassle leagues get. Everyone's happy, and there's always going to be complaints with umpires, regardless, no matter how good some umpire is or how bad it is. But try to limit those issues.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the things that comes to my mind, and one thing that I think I've said on previous shows, Brian, is almost, is it ever crossed your mind about maybe like a ranking system or something that is where the better umpire you become, maybe when you ump a major A, you mentioned the pay might be a little higher at the major level, A level, as it should be. Is there any system or any thought behind, like, the guys that actually do a good job, hold those people accountable? They are going to ump the bigger and better games, which is more pay, compared to somebody who, I don't know. I'll just throw out. I know, like, a couple of my buddies have been umpiring, and I've heard they're really good umpires, believe it or not. Robbie Garzano and Kurt. But, like, just say if Kurt was awful at what he does, would he only ump the lower level? Now, they're both major players. He can't put them in a major game, and I understand that. But let's just say, for an example, like a Randy Nelson, right? I've seen Randy ump. I know Randy just joined the feed, so welcome, Randy. He's absolutely terrible. I'm just going to say that. But no, he's not. He's not terrible. He's actually not bad. But either way, Brian, like someone like Randy, if he's actually terrible at what he does, he would be held accountable for that and maybe not ump a major game. Where if Randy's incredible at what he does, then he should ump a major game, or he should ump I mean, is there talk? Because I know recently there was just an SSA umpires meeting. I heard great feedback from you and then other people on the SSA side. So tell me a little bit about your thought process, and then, if you want, get into the meeting and how that went.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's a lot of factors to it. So normally in tournaments, you'll see, or even league play, and that if people's schedules is first off, when they can work and not. Just like players have family commitments and different things, so do a lot of the umpires with family and kids and sports and everything. So that's part of it. But then when it comes to the tournaments, not everyone's going to agree with me and that on who are the top umpires overall. But overall, you do see in the tournaments that I assign, and that's to say, does the same thing for their tournaments that they assign themselves to. You see the better umpires in those bigger games, and that in the bracket Saturday morning, you may see some Fort Park. If you notice, a lot of times there's 2 umpires in games, and that everyone, it's not just 1, 2, 3 assign the games and it's done. It's putting in the right people together, someone really strong with someone working their way up when it's 2-man, but when it's 1-man game, there's no opportunity to do that. That umpire needs to be on the ball with everything. So, but they have to be available. Sometimes, like a Saturday night, people may have stuff, or like you say, like, why is Joe Monza doing a Saturday morning game and not out here on Saturday night? Well, because he has family commitments. Just using it as an example in that case. But for umpires,
what is wrong with Joe for having family commitments? He should be there.
I love Joe. Joe's one of the best out there. I got to say that. I love Joe Monza. He's great.
And then with umpires, and that who are not cutting it, and that being held accountable, as you said with that, Jim, and that you don't see them as much. Now, again, there are times where, why is this guy doing all the games again? There's a lot of people, a lot of games going on everywhere. People have stuff during the week. I mean, there's a lot of umpires. There's some umpires I'd love to work league games during the week that you see in, say, example, SSA tournaments. Or even Joe. I'd love to have Joe Monza working during the week. He's not available this week, so you only see him on weekends. But SSA guys that work a couple tournaments for me too, I'd love to get out during the week, and that they have other commitments. They can't come out, and that so have to move people around where it's best fit for them. But going with this SSA softball umpires meeting, I have mine coming up for all my umpires in a couple weeks here. 2 weeks from tomorrow, actually, is my meeting in Forest Park. But that's the meeting was really good. I attended their first one. A lot of umpires there. Anthony Tyler basically ran the meeting. It was very well done. And that he spoke very well with it on all things. How I look at it. As an umpire, I look at it. Yes, I'm in charge of umpires. But I ran in displays when I first got there for the first 5 years I was there. I ran all the softball leagues in displays. I look at it as park district. I look on both ends of things. It's not always on our side of things or the officials. It's also what's best for the league and the players. I mean, I'll have referees or umpires who get upset. They feel I'm not backing them. Well, I'm not going to just back you 100%. Umpires, referees make mistakes, do things they shouldn't do, and again, it's on me, and it's my reputation, my business on the line, and there have been umpires that don't work for me at all. That I don't allow them to work anymore, and I won't get into those names, but for multitude of reasons, they won't work. I won't allow them to work for me for past issues on the field, off the field dependability, and whatnot. 101 different reasons, but you got to hustle. I mean, that's my biggest thing with umpires, and that every single one of us will make a mistake, and that we've all have made mistakes in almost every game. There's tons of bang calls in 16-inch softball. Not so much in 12-inch, but 16-inch. There's bang calls all the time, and we don't have instant replay, and they're close. But you got to be in position, and get out from behind the plate. If you're making a call on home plate or behind home plate on a ball to the gap, and there's a play at second base, and you're not, and you're standing at home plate, whether you're right or wrong, half the people are going to be bitching and moaning at you. And you know what? You deserve it at that point in time. Get it. I mean, obviously, as an umpire, you need to worry about the lead runner as most important. Right. But there's no reason you cannot be in position. You're not having to sprint up and down all on a basketball court on fast breaks constantly. It's awful. You're running 20, 30 feet. I mean, is what we're talking about. And there's no reason not to. It's just laziness when they don't. And then you're going to get issues. And that's not okay.
So I'm just going to hold on one second. I'm just going to stop us right there really quick. We just had literally like 20 people join the feed. I just want to say hello to them before we get on. Yeah. Mr. Brian Sherman, William Weatherspoon, Tommy Corlett, Steven Majerus, Drew Ladick from Iowa, welcome. Matt Mackey, welcome. Mr. Steve Batnich, welcome to the show. John Doss, welcome. Jim Macy, welcome. PJ Rains, Dave Padilla, we brought up earlier. Alan Jr., welcome. Joe Lagilia, welcome. Joe Lagilia, actually, he runs his Friday morning. It's called The Office, on Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he just talks all about community out in Plainfield. For those that are watching, watch him on. You actually learn a lot about mortgage, finances, all sorts of stuff. So, Joe, thank you for watching. And Mr. Brian House, thank you for watching. So, a lot of things that, and Batnich just put illegal out there. That's hysterical because he would always yell at you. I remember this playing shortstop. He'd always yell at you, Brian, because you would say illegal as soon as it left his hand. And he'd get so mad because he's like, oh, 6'10", what are you doing? You know how he used to get, which is hysterical. So he put illegal out there. So that gives you a chuckle. I know that would. So, but Donnie, go right ahead.
Yeah. Brian, you talked about human error. It's part of the game. It's part of every professional sports game that you watch, and everybody disagrees with everything the umpire says. It's lose-lose if you're an umpire, right? So is there any thought to incorporating video reviews in 16-inch softball? Say Forest Park, no gloves. We do streams up there. We're going to do streams on the Uncle Jimmy, Cousin Donnie show. These are rewindable games that we can kind of go back and look at. Is there any interest or any conversation to doing any video reviews for close calls in 16-inch softball?
Well, first of all, I would not be against it. I mean, there's so many times when stupid arguments are going on plays that are not even close. And there are a lot of plays in there. I mean, again, umpires do get stuff wrong, but there's so many plays that aren't even close. And they're arguing. I'm like, I wish there was review. Or I'm happy that now games are being broadcasted. I mean, on close plays where there's arguments and every one of my games, if I know it's being broadcast, and that I want to get every call right. I don't get every call right, but most umpires want to get every call right. There's a pride factor there. Guess what I'm doing? As soon as I get home, and then after games, I'm finding that video on the feed and going back looking at that play and seeing what happened. Was I right? And that, because again, I do take pride in it. And I know other umpires do the same thing, and that we don't want to get any calls wrong. That's not the goal. You got to put yourself in the best position. And with one umpire in like league games, and it's not worth paying two umpires. That's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying have two umpires out there, but with one umpire, things are missed. And that there's little things that happen that can be missed. The tag play, and that a runner going from first to second or third getting tagged on the back side, on the side. You don't have a clear view of that as an umpire in front. Or, and again, you have multiple runners on base, and the guy at a time, you got to be looking everywhere, and someone misses a base, or my favorite is a runner going to first and cuts a corner off by 5 people. The umpire's not looking on a play because they're looking at something at third base. It's only one umpire. So, yes, I think it would be good. I would never say no to it, but it has to be things in place for it. And I know we've got
the software to kind of do it when we're streaming
amount of time frame, and just like it's done in the other leagues. Obviously, we won't have 101 angles. We're going to have one angle most likely, but it's still enough to get anything blatantly wrong corrected.
Right.
Definitely.
But to your point, the view, and I think like behind the first base side of things, when you're on the third base side, it's too hard to see. But when you're on that first base side and you're live streaming, you pretty much see every play at first base, whether it's Gio doing it, Donnie doing it, Adam doing it, whoever's streaming out there. I mean, usually when they're behind that first base side, it's usually pretty clear.
It is, right.
I don't know how that process would look, because it's like, how are you going to, I guess someone could pull it up on their phone. You know, they don't have to end the live stream. Someone could pull it up on their phone and rewind. That would probably be the easiest. I mean, obviously it'd have to be clear cut, just like it is in all the other sports. But for the most part, I think that's a great idea. I mean, there's no reason why that shouldn't, you know, come up down the road with the equipment and a lot of things that we're doing, especially Forest Park, right? I mean, that's kind of the mecca of the game, per se.
Yep.
Maybe Forest Park could try it in the league games. Who knows? You know, just to give it a go. You know, there's a test run always period of everything that we do. So maybe, you know, that's something, Bri, that you can look into, and you got your meeting coming up. Who knows? Maybe that's something you could throw on the agenda.
Yeah, well, the meeting is just with the umpires. It's not with the league. We can definitely talk with the leagues or those tournaments. But a league at night or a one-day tournament would be a good place to.
Yeah, a great idea.
Not as big, like like Forest Park. You wouldn't want to start it in the Nationals or anything. That's too big.
Right, yeah.
So keeping stuff on time, and you want to try a one-day tournament would be, I think, ideal. Try something like that.
I think as someone who's doing the stream, we would be happy to let you take the reins of the footage for a while. It makes us feel as if our job is even that much more important, that we've got to kind of be on with the cameras and kind of get the best angles for not only the people watching, but for you guys too, as the umpires. I mean, that would provide a lot more for the stream. I think that would show really the importance of it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you could almost run it like it's like one challenge per game. If you get it right, you get a second. If you don't get any more the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that type of stuff, like how they do it. You brought up a little bit about pay and the higher levels. You know, my guess, and I'm just total guess, I have no idea, but the lower, and it's got to be what, 35, 40 a game, all the way up to somewhere in the 50 range. It would be my guess for some.
I'd be happy to sell. I mean, it's not a secret or anything. I mean, it's for like Melrose Park and for Forest Park, the A League, and the A League and Forest Park. Because an hour and 15 minutes, where like Melrose Park A League is on the hour.
Right.
1-1, but it's a time issue too, not just the level. And that the high level is $50 a game, and that first player, and they get paid $50, and they get paid $36 for mostly all other on the hour games, which end up mostly 1-1. So kind of equal in that, but people like to talk about umpires are making so much money, and that take this example, Melrose Park, and it's 2 games only a night, so they're not going out there. They're making $100 on Tuesday and Thursday. Not saying that's shabby or anything, but the people yelling and screaming out there, they could do 4 1-1 house league games and make $36 a game, make $144 in maybe an hour more time. And not hear a peep.
Right.
And like, it's not like I've heard people say $50 an hour, and then it's not $50 an hour. The game's first of all an hour 15, hour 20. I mean, how many games in the end you're there longer, and they're going there for 2 games, say Melrose. It's not like you're going to your job and that for 8 hours driving for 8 hour day, and then you're making the hours of pay. That's a really good money. But none of these umpires are getting rich off of umpiring. I mean, most of them. Some of them are doing it for the money. A lot of them are doing it for the love of the game. I'm not naive. Not every last one of them, but majority love the game of softball and want to stay involved one way or the other. And so they do the game, but none of them are getting rich off this by any means.
Cool.
You know, sometimes I beg to differ, Brian.
You could beg to differ. How do you beg to differ? And you can.
But that's okay. You know, I mostly get along with all the umpires. I normally do. You know, some people will probably say differently, but that's okay. I just get passionate about a lot of times when we play. And hey, man, we're taking time out of our schedule to go to a field. There's just 2 things I always ask the umpire. Just make sure you somewhat hustle and just know the rules. And that's all it is. And when the guy's standing behind home plate making calls, that's where you get a little pissed off, because you know, you got to look at it from the other end, right? And a guy with a family, a guy who works a full-time job, who has, you know, has a busy schedule, who's making time to come out there, and then you're getting hosed by an umpire, or you're the one putting up the sponsorship money and you're getting hosed by the umpire. That's where things, I think people, they look at it differently from a standpoint of when they're more involved, right? And that's all, I think all anyone will ask for is just hustle and basically be, you know the rules. And I think you'll never hear a complaint as long as those two things happen. Yeah, you're going to blow a call. That shit happens all the time. You just hope that the blown call is not in a crucial spot in the game, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But
when it comes to blown calls, and that, like, obviously it's a judgment, and that's where the umpire needs to be in position and hustle.
Right.
That's the hustling part of it. And there's no excuse not for hustling. We already talked about that. In terms of knowing the rules, and that, yes, you know, there are some tougher gray area stuff, but again, as a player or manager, and that, again, there should not be many issues, but it's not going to do any good at the time screaming, yelling for 15, 20 minutes going over. If it's a not knowing the rules,
right,
protest at that time. Again, if it's an issue like with me, it's going on. If it goes more than a couple minutes arguing, okay, we've done, I heard it. This is my call. And I will say, many people, if you want to protest it. And there's all ways to protest in all these leagues and what to do. Obviously, tournaments are dealt with at the time right away for league players. But protest, there's nothing wrong with protesting. And that, yes, there's a fee involved in stuff, so it's not protests from the leagues are not happening constantly for when they're not wrong, when they're wrong in situations. But just if you think you're right and get the rule down and then protest it, and let's move on and get it right. I mean, it happened a couple times over the years, and that where the umpire made the wrong rule interpretation. And then and okay, file a protest, and that's it. Move on. There's not going to change a call with that one umpire out there and that arguing for 15, 20 minutes.
Donnie, I know you have a question about bad calls. So I think this is a perfect time.
Nice little transition.
Yes. Ask Mr. Panek your question about bad calls.
You got it. It's not about Brian, what's a call that you remember in your career, maybe at a really high stakes game, or it could be kind of a regular league night game, but what's a call that you remember that you absolutely got wrong and maybe owned up to it or admitted to it, or just kind of ate it and said, well, I missed that one. Hopefully no one yells at me too bad. Give me the story. What do you got?
Well, obviously, when you make the call, you're thinking you're making the right call first off.
Yeah.
And then you're not making, they made the call, I messed it up. No, you're making the call because you think it's right at that time. And that in the umpire's mind, they think they got the call right. Mm-hmm. And that's the first moment. So going back, I couldn't tell you the game. And that a few years ago, there was a fair foul ball down the line. I want to say it was a Forest Park tournament, and down the line, and I called it fair, and it looking back and going back on it, it was foul. I mean, it was it was wrong. I mean, again, as I said earlier, we all make mistakes. Yeah. I have no problem. I mean, we admitting make a mistake, and a lot of times if there's a call, hey, with one umpire in particular, hey, here, this is where I was for the play. This is where I was supposed to be. I'm in position. This is what I saw. And then you'll hear me say, maybe with the second umpire, the call's different, but I'm in the right position, and this is where I'm supposed to be and this is what I saw. I can't call anything different. I could be wrong.
How did you go about it? Did you admit to it after? Did you say anything, or did you just say, well, I blew that one? What is the thought process?
After the day, like the next day at the tournament, looked it up, and I was wrong, and of course I mean it was on video. I was wrong.
I think that's good.
It's hard not to admit it. But there's umpires in the past, no longer really involved too much with softball, but same time you can't go up right away after a game admitting I blew that call, and then players get tired of hearing that too. And there's some older umpires who are no longer working that would tell that people all the time. And I forget who it was, and that one of the major teams and that stop fucking saying and that you're sorry you made the call. Just get it right next time. And I'm tired of hearing you apologize.
it gives you guys more credibility, in my opinion. If you go back and you rewatch it and say, man, I got that wrong, and then approaching someone, the next day and saying, man, I screwed that one up, I think your word goes way farther as an umpire. So players appreciate
So another
that.
story I want to say, I think Big Mickey said was on board. So I was involved in the game, not the call, but it was ASA Nationals in Mount Prospect years ago, like 05, 06, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Mick Jr. was pitching, 3-man crew, which was ridiculous because umpires never worked any other tournament doing 3-man except for that. So you have umpires running all over the place that don't know what they're doing in positioning. But regardless of that, it was me, Boots, Clarence Cass, for those who've been around for a while, and then moved out west, and then some other umpire. I don't remember her name. She was at home plate the game. And Mick, Junior started complaining about calls and that on balls and straight calls. She was calling everything a ball.
Not Mick. Mick wouldn't do that.
Started complaining. And he got vocal and all that. Well, that pissed this umpire off. And now every pitch is a ball. I mean, it was like 8-foot pitches landing right behind the tip. Ball. Well, Mick Jr. gets tossed. Now senior's pitching. And then I think Mick would know. I mean, we're talking probably 7 people got walked in a row between the two of them in the game.
Oh, my God.
And then the Mick Senior gets thrown out. Then he's calling for the UIC, Mike DeLeo at the time, down to come down from the whatever you want to call that, above the concession stand over at Majewski, and come out. Now, she had also called a legal pitch for too much time between with arguing. And at that point, I stepped in. I'm not the home plate umpire. I'm just an umpire at the time. And she started calling, like, you cannot call a ball legal. You're having a conversation with Mick. Like, you cannot call a ball. Let's get through it. But it was horrific. Boots and I were just, this is an embarrassment. And there was nothing we could do out there. I mean, I was not an umpire in chief at the time. Nothing that we could do, and just had to get through it. But it was
sure Mickey,
they both will talk about it forever.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure Big Mick will remember every single pitch from that inning, every single ball.
Yes, he will.
Like, he's got the most incredible memory. I could see Mick taking us through that entire inning.
You know what? I will definitely ask him about that next time I see him.
Yeah.
And I'll get a 45-minute answer, but I'll definitely hear about it.
You're right, I will.
So, but you mentioned, guys in softball like Mickey Balestri and Little Junior. And that kind of leads me to my next question. And I think this is a funny one because every umpire knows walking into a game's like, son of a B, I got this guy today. He's it's going to be a tough game, right? This guy's going to be bitching at me or whatever the case may be. Is there any of those guys in softball, whether past, present, that you knew walking up to the field, you're like, man, I don't want to have his game because it's one of those situations where you just know you're afraid of him or just you don't want to deal with him.
There's a few, and it's different reasons at different times. So in terms of besides players, to start off with, in terms of teams, like, again, if there's an issue a week or two before between two teams that are tournament, they're playing each other a week later, and you know how it can get heated. Okay, yeah. And in general, it's going to be a tight game.
Right.
And again, I don't like to move umpires all the time, but for everyone's sake, if there was a heated game and get the umpires involved, can try a little cool down period afterwards, and major stuff. So for the umpire's sake, for the league's sake, for the players' sake, there's no reason to stick it to the guys and have the same umpire out there if there was a major issue the next day or 2 days later. So I do look at that. In terms of players back in the day, I mean, right now not so much, but I mean the Barron brothers were always a bear. I mean,
Kenny and Richie, I love them.
Yeah, I mean Richie. I mean, I had him for a doubleheader once in Westchester, and just every game it was always something. Like, he had a feeling I didn't like him, and again, I don't like or dislike. Anyway, we're umpires. I mean, I don't know whether I like you or not. The call is a call. It doesn't matter. And the first time I make a call because I dislike somebody or I like somebody, that's the last game I ever umpire or officiate basketball, because that has no place in softball. So, but the Barron brothers, the doubleheader I had, it just constantly first game, he got tossed. He's gone to the next game. I had him literally the next week out of Westchester again.
That's awesome.
And I went up to him before the game. I'm like, you know what? Gonna tell this before because I knew he thought I didn't like him. It had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with that. I care less. And that it's a game. And I went out to him in the parking lot and that to his car while he put on his cleats and talking to him and said, hey, just let you know what happened last week. That's over and done with. I had nothing against you. And he's like, well, you sure do. He talked to me like, you sure do have something against me. I feel that way. I'm like, I'm coming up here telling you I do not. I wouldn't be coming up here telling you, coming up to have this conversation if I did. I'm telling you. And then, you know, after that, he may not agree with him. There was never an issue again in all the years afterwards with that. I mean, some other guys like, and he's a great guy now. Lafrano, when he was young, was a pain in the ass. And I forget who played for Flashback and Flash with a Q also around that time. Was that his name, the shortstop?
Ralphie Lawrence?
No, not Ralphie. Littler guy.
Cusick played short 1 year for us.
I think him too. When he was young,
no, he actually was on Flash after I was. He probably, it was probably Cusick. I think he played short 1 year for them. I don't think it lasted long though.
Yeah,
I know they had Keith Filkins there a little bit.
Right, but he was there like 1 or 2 years, and like he was rough to deal with. I mean, him and same when they were young, but they grew up and it was fine. Jeremy's an amazing guy now. I mean, he's amazing. And you know, it was always hard to umpire because and that is Big Steve, and that a great
he's
guy.
Gonna love that.
You know what? For multiple, I mean, the extra steps, trying to eat his long feet in the first place, and then he extra drag step constantly, and then teams arguing, and then you call it, and on the player, and then everyone's mad at just because they said something, you're calling it. No, I called it because you're literally 5 feet away from second base. I mean, you didn't get there in one step. And then the legal pitch going back and forth, and that for years.
That's why he said illegal. The common theme of everything he's saying, Donnie, is most of the guys that played on Jinx. You know, those are all my teammates.
I forgot that he was on Jinx. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so those are all my Jinx guys. So, which is awesome. But Donnie, why don't you? We'll just go back. Mickey actually posted out there the situation. So, why don't we?
This is a great comment. So. Mick says, Donnie tossed me, or she tossed me out for delay a game, 7 walks, 1, 2, and third inning. She was supposed to be on third base. UIC was 12-inch guy from Rockford, had no idea. Only time me and Mick got tossed in the same game, let alone the ASA Nationals. And he still laughs about it to this day. That's great. So it says she was supposed to be on third base, right? So were they in the wrong spots?
No, they assigned where you were for each game, and they put her at home plate.
I love that. We got another great comment from Ron Kubicki. He says, Donnie, tell Brian I said hi, and he is one of the best. That's a great comment, too, from Ron Kubicki.
Ron's great. Actually, I did my first major softball game first game I do. I get called last minute to do Hodgkins, and they had the second game of the night. I think Young Guns, I don't know who they're playing the first game. And then Young Guns, and the second game was 45. The first game literally was like all Young Guns games back in the day, took an hour and 45 minutes. And that.
No, I don't believe that.
And then Kubicki, that they have the second game they're playing. First time doing major softball, and I have the 45s right away. And they're ready to go. Well, they want batting practice. And the other team's like, no, let's go. We're playing. We're ready late. Let's go. And I gave them like 5 minutes. And Ron's like, oh. And that we don't want anyone to get injured. We need time. I'm like, well, nothing states in the league rules about extra time after the first game. It's time to go. I gave 5 minutes. Like, do you know who I am? And then I'm like, yeah, I know who you are. And he called Oscar. I think that was when Oscar and Akinfora signed it themselves. That league when it was joined at both places. And like this guy, really good guy, young guy, and that let him know he needs to give us time to hit and warm up. But it was. Yeah, nothing like being thrown in the fire first game. But Ron's a great guy.
Those are a couple of good comments, Brian. Jimmy, what else you got for Brian?
Yeah, so another question that came to mind is I was just thinking about, just you mentioned about guys going to the field, games and stuff like that. But if you look at umpires today, what do you think is like the 3 worst things that kind of umpires hate the most when umpiring a game?
I would say, I mean, the first thing, and it's not regularly, but a lot of the problems when it comes from intoxicated players. And I know everyone's out there having a good time, and in the bigger tournaments, typically there are less issues. And if there is an issue, it's regarding a close play, a call that, again, everyone, it's a big tournament, but it's a real reason for
Right.
a call in a close game, a big call, and that can change a game one way or the other. But the call, but you're fine with that. But it's the nonsense on plays that are 3 feet away, or people running their mouths intoxicated in some of the park tournaments. Overall, I mean, that makes it difficult because you're trying to do the game, and you get people just had a bit more to drink than they should have, and then cause problems. Makes it difficult.
Right.
I'll give an example of that last year, just in general. Like Melrose Park, normally, sometimes those are the tournament is sometimes the easiest games, and sometimes the most difficult games of the year because it's a week after Forest Park. People are having fun, but there is also good money on the prize in the end too.
Right.
And people drinking a lot. I mean, going back to Mick, I'm not trying to. I mean, last year, Mick, I told him, like, he was arguing on a play that wasn't even close, and then from the sideline, and I told him, hey, we're done. This conversation's done. You've had so much to drink. He could barely stand that day, if you remember. and I told him, I made the comment like, you've had like 15 beers, enough. We're done. And then he's like, why don't you quit watching me and how much I have to drink and start paying attention? You might be a better umpire. Something along those lines. I'm like, okay, I walked into that.
He's got a great point about that. The Melrose tournament. I know the team you're talking about, Brian. You could just say it. It's fine.
No, it's not. But it's fine. But if people are differently when they have had more a lot overserved. Let's just say that.
Jimmy, what's the name of that team?
Team Jagoff.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I will say this, Brian, though. In the 15 or 16 years we've been in that tournament, I want to say we've only had 2 guys thrown out ever, maybe 3 ever. I know we had a lot of bat problems last year, but to our point, it was the worst call I've ever seen in 16 softball history. And it came from your boy Oscar. Oscar, to this day, I think, would probably say he probably made the wrong call, which for the most part cost us the game. But either way, I mean, it's irrelevant. To your point, yeah, I mean, guys shouldn't be belligerent drunk, but that's the one tournament a year that my group, we have a blast with it. You know, we do it in Iowa.
Most of the time, it's always good over there. And there's times where, again, it's games that people don't care about. They're having a good time. And
right. No, I get it. Absolutely. But a lot of times they blame it on the alcohol, and it's not really the alcohol. It's just, sober or not, I would have got thrown out either way. It didn't matter. I got to say,
that'd be the first time in all the years, or second time at most, I've ever tossed you.
That's true. Good point.
And I gave you how many chances too? I mean, I warned you. I tried not to toss you. I didn't want to toss you. I
just wanted to, but sometimes you just want to get tossed.
Isn't this great right now? Where you guys are going full circle from absolute. Jimmy probably hated you in that moment of his life, and now.
And in the end, afterwards, I'm in the way. I'm laughing, but not laughing at it. I mean, it's in the way it's kind of
it's funny.
I don't take anything personal out there.
It's fine. I don't take it personal. Trust me.
And
you wouldn't be on the show if I didn't like you, bro.
Yeah, right.
But
Jimmy,
other things
tonight's
I would
guest.
say about umpires hating, and like lacking control by managers. I mean, the number of times, you're in a heated player, a heated player, you're going to talk to the manager, and it doesn't do any good to talk to an angry player. You're going to talk to the manager. They're in control of the team. They're in charge. That's what they signed up to be. And then when you have managers, hey, it's a grown man. I have no control of them, and that I can't do anything about it. That's for you to deal with. No, you're the manager. That is your role as manager. And if the manager's not going to handle it, then as an umpire, you have to handle it directly, and it's not going to end up good. So a manager takes control of the situation, talks to the umpire, gets the player removed from not the game, but just removed from the situation, back off and handle it. that solves so many issues. And then the last is just like constant. And again, there's always going to be arguing balls and strikes. By rule, there's no arguing balls and strikes. But we all know you're going to, at all levels, you're going to argue a bit. And that, but when it's every other pitch, both way, the team's constant, the whole team, I mean, that gets tired. Enough.
No.
We're not going to do that all the time. So I would say, to me, those are my 3 things.
Right. You mentioned one of the things I think that stuck to my head, what you mentioned about the 3 things. You mentioned the manager controlling kind of the dugout, per se. I do know, and this could be a rumor, but you can confirm it, there was something said at the SSA meeting about people coming out of the dugout and what the new rule is going to be for that. So, I mean, this is probably a great time, Brian.
That's great. Thanks for bringing that up. And that's so, yeah, at the SSA meeting, and this will include the Melrose, their tournaments, Melrose Park League, and Forest Park. We're going to be strict again. They're all the rules are. I mean, it's stated, but 16 inches long history of everyone coming out of the dugout on a close call, surrounding the umpire or the other team again on something that happens. So what's going to be being called, and it's going to be a big change. And it's going to be for umpires, in all honesty, is if you come out of the dugout, what's expected to be called, you will be ejected. It'll be talked over in ground rules with the manager before the game, and that you will be ejected from the game. You leave your position of field of your position in the field. Left fielder coming in to argue a play call at first base, they will be ejected, and that fortunately and hopefully there's no forfeits over it. I mean, that's not the goal or anything, but to have better behavior out there. Managers should be controlling their players, getting everyone out. And there's always been concern. I mean, umpires at my meetings for years have talked about, well, something has to be done with some of the players. And mind you, when we talk about this negative stuff with players, let me make sure to say this, and that 95% of the guys out there playing are great and are not a problem. Every once in a while, things happen, and everyone's going to get. You're playing at a high level, and that so you're going to get heated at that. But it's only a very small percentage that are constantly causing problems out there. And that, so it's not overall. I think 16-inch gets a bad rap. I mean, people hear, "Oh, you're umpiring 16-inch." I go, "Why would you deal with it?" Most of the 16-inch players are great people and great people to hang around and have no problems. I mean, a number of times people say, when I try to get umpire, I would never do. No, I'm not umpiring when I retire. I'm not going to. I see what you guys go through. I would never do it. They have no interest in doing it, but majority of guys are great. So I do want to make sure that is said. But yeah, that's what they want called. So I think it's good. But on the umpire side, the umpires have allowed too much to go on. You can't tell a player or a coach, manager, hey, another word. I mean, a number of times, exact quote, another word, you're out of here. Mm-hmm. And then the player continues to MF the umpire and go on and on. And you still don't talk, and the guy's still in the game. You don't do anything.
Right.
I mean, you have to. If you give a warning, it's not. You don't want to be a quick reaction unless there's something that you cannot not let go. And that. But I personally, always, every time I get a chance, hey, and that to the manager, hey, whoever the manager, hey, another word out of so and so, or that he's going to be ejected. Both teams hear it. It's verbal, and now continues. Now I'm going to follow up on it. But umpires do need to talk. We don't want. Okay, no one wants to toss anybody, and that should. If you do, again, you shouldn't be umpiring. That's not the goal. I mean, it's a rough situation.
Yeah, I just want to make sure this is clear for everybody. So what you're saying is, if I'm in the dugout and I'm a bench guy, right? I'm not playing this game. I come out and I argue a call. I'm immediately gone.
That's what they want to call, yes, and that's what should be being called.
So that's the first, which is fine, right? I mean, they have that in professional sports. They have that in the NBA. You leave the bench, you're ejected. Same thing in college. So no problem at all. That's totally understandable. The one person that could argue a call is the coach, right?
Correct.
Is there going to be someone designated on the field?
Yes, field and yes, both. Yeah, just like I mean, which is talked about should be talked in every pregame meeting, and that which is not. It is important for the manager to go up. I mean, if SSA made a point of this, and I agree 100% with them, if the manager should be coming up, the umpire needs to be the manager. they're doing the score sheet. Okay, that's fine. You come up, not just send someone else, because then, oh, you didn't bring it up in the pregame. You didn't tell me. Well, no, I did bring it up, or the umpire did bring it up. You weren't there, and that it should be the manager. It takes 2 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go over pregame stuff.
Okay.
And go answer all those questions so everyone's on the same page.
No, that would definitely, definitely make a difference, I think, when you see a whole team approach the umpire, per se. Like you said, you don't want to forfeit people, but at the same time, it's got to stop somewhere to a point of controlling, just the emotions and the fire that goes amongst everybody when a bad call does happen. So that's, I kind of like the rule. I don't know about you, Donnie. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's going to kind of force some people to stay home, and I love the point that you make that we don't want people to forfeit. Right? If you have an entire team out of the dugout, I think it might get a little hairy with the umpire maybe having to throw multiple people out, and then it starts more conflict from there. Right? What did I say? What did I do? Well, you're breaking the rule of coming out of the dugout. So that's kind of where that gray area I think will come into play, especially people that are vocal. Like, oh, I wasn't out, but.
It is tough. Umpire in league games, again, there's no video camera to go to. Okay, who came up like basketball? Who came off the bench in an NBA game? Well, you look at the video, it's easy. You can't. Umpires live with no video. You're going to do your best that you can with it.
Yeah. So here's a good comment from Sam Rogers. Says, any concerns with the gray area of, in quotes, coming out of the dugout, considering it isn't abnormal to have 4, 5, or 6 guys constantly outside the dugout? So kind of asking, do we have to set a prerequisite before the game? Only one guy out of there, but usually it's true. Multiple guys hang outside the dugout. It's just
it's rough enough to umpire a game that constantly policing and telling guys every batter go in, and you can again in pregame with stuff. If there's a ball that goes out that way, it's going to go against you if it's close. There's going to be interference and. You're not going to get the advantage of the call because you were out of the dugout where you're not supposed to be. It's going to, if anything close, it's going to go the other way. But at the same time, we're not going to police it every time because games will take forever. And that your 9:15 game at Forest Park is not going to get out of there at 11:30, 12 o'clock midnight Monday or Wednesday night. And no one wants that overall. But no, people guys, they're out of the dugout yelling. I mean, that's where there's some. There is gray area there. They're not coming out storming. They take a step or two out of the dugout. Am I going to toss anybody? And they're yelling from there? No, they're not coming onto the field to play.
Right.
And
making a spectacle of it. Yeah.
Right. How many times do you think Sal Milazzo is going to get thrown out this year? Let's put an over/under on it.
He's the manager. He gets to come.
I would say 0.
I'll say 3 and a hook.
Sal.
I'll take the over.
He does a lot to fire up his team, but he knows when's enough's enough. He'll never swear at an umpire.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard him swear one time in my life at an umpire. And in all honesty, he knows when to stop.
Maybe, I don't know. That's a good point.
He did get thrown out of the first stop,
and he obviously feels very strongly about stuff, passionate. But again, he loves the game of softball.
Yeah. No. He loves the game of softball. I just like busting the balls every time.
I don't remember. I can't tell you the last time. I don't know many times he's been tossed.
He got tossed. He got tossed in the first tournament of the year this year.
He did. We were playing.
He did get tossed in a game in Des Plaines, I think, in a over 50 game or something at Rand Park, and last year, the year before, I heard.
I love that. We were playing high Y, and this was literally at like 2 a.m, Brian, and argued with the umpire in our first tournament and got thrown out. And you know what? He just kind of stood probably 30 feet from the fence and wasn't gone. I mean, it wasn't like a malicious thing. He stood right next to Jimmy and watched the end of the game. A good comment from Jeremy Lafrano says, Brian was always one of the best umps. P.S. Sorry about my actions, Brian.
It's Lafrano.
Brian, my next question for you kind of ties into this. I mean, it's a pretty good transition, but I have tell us a story of a good time that you threw somebody out that after it was over, you said, man, that was That was a good one. I not enjoyed throwing somebody out, but there was a certain relief of doing it. Do you have a good story about that?
I can tell you a couple stories about throwing out. I mean, in terms of a good story or relief or anything, no, I've never tossed anyone out one time. And I honestly can say that where I felt good about it. I don't like confrontation. I mean, I think most people talk to me and then I'll see how I handle myself and all that. I'm not out there on a power trip. I'm not looking for confrontation. I do the best job that I can. Again, try to be friendly, hustle, provide a good customer service.
Sure.
So in terms of, I've never gotten any enjoyment. And I'm not saying that other umpires haven't. I know a couple times we're up like that with it, but no, I've never once. I mean, there were 2 times. My favorite 2 stories of tossing somebody, though, not favorite, but memorable. Let's say that.
There we go.
One was kind of funny. One was not. And I almost years ago, the one that wasn't, I almost quit umpiring softball, major level. Right before, about 2 weeks before Forest Park, Mudville was playing Woodpeckers, and Eddie Cheevy was out there playing on the Woodpeckers at the time, and he was not with it that night. 6th inning of a game, like 9-2, 9-3, the score. They were losing to Mudville, and the strike 3 was called. Literally like an 8-foot pitch going like right behind the tip. And then again, if you notice, ever when I call strike 3, I'm never boisterous. I'm not making a scene or anything. It's not like baseball. And it's strike 3, batter's out, just like that. I'm not there to show up anybody. And that he put the bat on the ground, and that stares at me, put the bat on the ground, then go over to, and then he goes in the dugout. I take the bat, put it along the fence. He comes out of the dugout, throws the bat back to home plate. Okay, now he's tossed. He sits in the stands, no big deal. I'm like, game's almost over. And the night, I don't think anything of it. Forest Park race, and they ended up, hey, we'll walk you to the car. I'm like, no, everything's fine. Don't worry about everything. And then I'm really not thinking anything. Joey Mueller and CJ, big CJ, there. And then Joey, back that time, Joe lived around the corner from me in Lombard when we lived in Lombard. So Joe's like, no, we'll walk you to the car. We're not going to let you. So I'm parked on one of the side streets, and at the time, and there's Eddie Cheevy behind. And next thing you know, luckily Joe and Cheevy, he's chasing me around a car with a baseball bat, swinging the bat at me and effing me. I'm like, wow. Oh yeah, it was. I'm like, this is not worth it. And that Larry Pikert called me apologizing afterwards, which he had nothing to do with this. But then he was suspended for over a year from softball after that. And another story, funny in Forest Park tournament, is a quarterfinal game. God rest his soul, Frank Mione.
Yep.
I don't even know what the play was. They were right back. He had nothing to do. He was catching that game. He had nothing to do with the play. He comes out to the bases to argue the play, and that's the 3rd out of the last inning. And I'm not tossing up because in Forest Park, if you're tossed out from the game, you're tossed out for the entire tournament. And I have a lot more. I give a little more slack with that big of a punishment, and don't want to turn around at the tournament. And he's so close to me, in my face, and that screaming, hollering at me, and then he starts while talking, spitting, and that not meaning to at that point in time. And I'm like, you spit on me again, you're going to be tossed. At that point in time, he goes up, just spit directly in my face. And obviously he tossed. Well, I found the next day he ended up, and that he had family commitments the next day and he couldn't make it. And I wasn't tossing him. So
that's awesome.
Tell me you want me to be tossed. Like, what?
That's awesome.
Oh, that's a terrible way to go about that. But oh my. Wow.
I just want to jump in. I want to say thank you for everyone who's joining the feed. I'm going to write off some names here. We just had a ton of people jump on. Brian, people must like you for some reason. I'm not sure why, but Sean Quinn Jr., James Connolly, Keith Bischoff, my boy Dave Bradford, Little Dave, Bill Kavanaugh, Frank Simons joined on, Pat Schillo joined, obviously Lafrano, we've already read some comments to him, George, John Smith, Danny Martin, Danny Greif, who's an umpire, Preston Miranda, Mike O'Reilly, Brad Hitz. So thank you guys all for joining the feed. Danny's been umping our games out in the dome for us. I don't know, Brian, I'm sure you're familiar with Danny. He's been umping our games out in the dome. He lives out by the Shorewood location. He's like literally 10 minutes down the road. It's right in his backyard. It makes it really easy. He comes out umps a 9-inning game. We all get along with him. I know
Jimmy yells at him every week.
I do yell at him every week. He umps a lot of stuff.
Can I have a question for you, Jim?
We're going to get there, buddy.
Okay.
Stay in line. All right? We're going to get there. The end of the show, you get to ask us questions. All right?
Very good.
But, so I just want to ask you, a guy like him who used to ump before, how does someone maybe get back into umpiring? Do they reach out to you, or somebody who's starting new? How does that work? Does it just say, hey, I want to learn about umpiring. I want to maybe start at the B level, A level, major level. How does that work in regards to, adding more umpires? Because you said you've had the most umpires now
this year
than you've had.
Hopefully you guys will see that within a year or two, some of them moving up, because some of the umpires are getting older. You're not going to have some of them around forever. We've lost a couple the last few years as well, some really good umpires.
Right.
And that due to death and stuff, or retiring for that matter. There's a lot of umpires who are no longer there, so we need to get more involved in that in umpiring. So reaching out to me by email. My email is very easy. My company name is Best Officials. The officials is plural at hotmail.com. Or reach out to me on Facebook or call me and that. So any which way, and then I can put on there. I have no problem giving out my number and that too. So it's 630 if you want, and that's 630-988-2413, and that is my number. So always looking for new people and getting involved. But there's multiple things to being a good umpire. I mean, obviously the umpire on the field is important, but it's commitment level. I mean, you're only going to get so many chances if you can't the last minute on me. I mean, I had a referee, their grandmother died 3 times. I mean, just excuse last minute. I mean, I have an Excel spreadsheet of the excuse, the date, and the number of times the cancellation. Because if I can't depend on you, I can't. Games go with no umpire. And that's I for all the games. I mean, between basketball and softball, a year I assign about 8,000 games between everything. And like basketball on Saturdays, particularly in the winter, everyone's playing. There's youth basketball everywhere, and that I can't have people who are not dependable and not show up. So that's important. Being on time, being polite, hustling, customer service. Again, yes, we're getting paid as umpires, so in that way we're professional. But this is all a part-time job for umpires. We're providing the service. This is not professional baseball, professional sports. Come in there, don't have a chip on your shoulder. You had a bad day at work. You had a bad day at home because of spouse or kids are. There's issues at home. The people on the field, whether it's basketball, softball in this case, they have nothing to do with that. Forget that all beforehand. Go umpire the game. Give your all to those people there because they have nothing to do with it. They pay, as you said earlier, sponsors, people pay good money to be in the leagues, and they deserve your best effort out there.
Yep. I'm going to hold you accountable to that, my man.
You can't. I've always said that.
So, Brian, this is the part of the show where we head over to rapid fire. Okay.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 10 names, and I want you to give me a sentence or 2 at the most about each one of those guys. If you got a great story, Donnie and I don't mind. Please share the story if it's funny, and you want to, or just give a tribute. That's okay. I promise you, Gio, my guy Gio, is not in the top 10. Okay. But I am going to have a surprise for you at number 1. So, so you know.
We're talking about Gio. I mean, and I know all this stuff going on. Gio is a great guy. That guy loves softball, and softball needs people.
But Gio's not in the top 10. We don't got to hear about
it. Okay. I just.
All right. So number 10, Bob Ancona.
He goes back with the day. He's a dedicated guy who cares a lot about softball, still does care a lot about softball. I mean, we've not to go with other names that maybe that might be on here too, but I mean, the days of like Dave Novak, God rest his soul, and that Larry Picards who took over for Dave around, and Gary Cassanders too, God rest his soul. All those guys, you don't get those type of people in softball anymore at Park District. And people are jumping around job to job. They lived and breathed softball. That was important. I mean, you have Joe Serpico at Melrose, who I would say is the guy now of that. But you don't have that as a whole. And that people that work for the park district. Obviously, Forest Park is still everyone. JD on the board and the staff over there. They care a lot about softball, obviously, but get all those guys, again, talking like Bob, you don't have those people anymore in softball. And we need more like that.
So before I get to number 9, my nephew Pete just jumped on and said, you're a great umpire. He also said, what up, Uncle Jimmy and nephew Donnie? So I just want to throw that out there. So number 9, Pat Caputo.
Very passionate guy. And that hopefully he's doing well right now. And that everything, I actually just talked to him late last week, I think Thursday or Friday. I actually saw him in Glen Ellen a few times over the year. He was there watching his grandkids play where my daughter plays basketball. So that's it. But again, a fiery guy who cares a lot about softball. Whether you agree with him or not, he's passionate and wants the best for softball.
100%. And Patty's one of my guys. I love Patty. The best. Number 8, Larry Danley Butch.
Hey, for younger people out there, probably have no idea who he is. He's a Hall of Fame umpire who probably passed away 7 years ago, maybe
7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, somewhere around there. That guy, and then I think he's the first African American umpire in Forest Park No Gloves. He worked for me, did the championship game for a number of years when I took over. That guy, he took control of every game. He knew that rule book inside and out more than any umpire to this day that I know, including myself. I mean, that guy knew everything. And that it only like the problem is you'd have trying to find him before games because he'd be in his car and have a cigarette break, having 4 cigarettes between games. He'd be there, but he'd be on a smoke break. But that guy knew every rule and controlled every game that he was involved in.
So number 7 is one of the guys that's to my heart, Big Cam.
Big Cam. So funny.
Rest in peace, Cam. But go ahead, Brian.
Yes, and unfortunately, there's too many people here. Rest in peace that we're talking.
I know.
About. And a lot of them not of the age they should be.
No.
With it. Cam was a great guy. I mean, he actually umpired for a couple of years too for me. And that he and umpired before me on that for the guy for John Mitchell before me. Best way I describe him as a gentle giant. I mean, he came out rough, tough exterior at times, but if you really knew him, he was beyond funny guy, and he was just an awesome person. If you really got to know him. No, I mean he'd act tough on the field and all that, but he was just a great person.
Oh yeah, no, incredible. So this next guy, I call fucking crazy. He's absolutely nuts, but I like him. But he's absolutely crazy. All right, Dave Padilla.
Dave Padilla. You know, no, Dave's again. Going back to say a good guy who cares about softball. And trying to do best. You need more organizers and that who care. He is a crazy at times. He's crazy at times, and that. But he means well. He's trying to get tournaments going. Tries to work with everybody. He the guy doesn't have really a mean bone in his body. He's good-hearted. Yeah,
he is. I give him that, but he is crazy. Number 5, Paul Rowan.
Paul Rowan, you know, I've known him for the last probably 6-7 years overall.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Very good guy. I think what he's doing with the Hall of Fame is doing well, trying to bring everyone together. and that from ASA, SSA, and then trying to work 16-inch softball, not the two separate groups. And we all know why it started and the two organizations and everything, which made sense at the time. No disagreement from me on any of that stuff. But he's trying to do what's best. I think he's done a lot of good things for the Hall of Fame, and I'm looking forward to see where the Hall of Fame is in like 5 years from now from where it is. And obviously just extending. I mean, Ron Kubicki did amazing stuff for the Hall of Fame. I mean, that guy,
and still does
for so many years. It still does, and did for so many years, and goes on getting unnoticed by 85-90% of people in softball. And that,
Rob Kubicki's on our list of one of the individuals to interview. Yep. Donnie and I don't like giving out that list too much, but Rob.
Yeah, it's secret. It's a secret list.
He is definitely one of the guys on the future list, and I think it'd be a great interview because I know we get a lot about his name. A lot of people bring him up. So
he's been involved in softball for so long. I mean, the stories he could tell and everything, and the history of softball. His knowledge is unbelievable.
Yep. Awesome. So number 4, John Mitchell.
John Mitchell. Okay. Well, again, a lot of younger guys. I took over a signing from him in 2011. He assigned for about 33 years before that. Forest Park Gold Glove, the Westchester tournament. No nonsense. But everyone respected him. And that he was, again, polite, friendly to the game, but he was not going to take any crap. You knew going out on the field, you weren't going to get away with anything. I mean, as Gio mentioned at the SSA meeting about that, like he'd tell his players, he saw John Mitchell coming out, don't say a word to him, let me talk to him, because he's not going to take anything. But he played, I think, for the Stompers originally and a couple other teams, and that was a great player, a great guy. He's still living outside Tampa right now. Just a great person, gave me a lot of opportunities in softball. He's the one that got me going with major softball. And again, I talk to him regularly. Is great guy, just a tremendous guy.
So before we get to the top 3, we always stop here. Donnie, I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you're able to see who's joining or not, but if you're not, let me know.
I can't see anybody that's jumping. I can just kind of see the comments. Like you mentioned, cousin Peter or nephew Peter just commented. Go ahead and if you want to mention a couple people that just joined us.
No problem. Mark Wilson, welcome to the feed. Drew Laddick jumped back on, so welcome. We have Joseph. He just jumped on, and I can't see his last name. So a couple people jumping on here late. But, Brian, before we get to the top 3, usually at this point, we usually want to give a toast or a shot. I only got a water cup today. I don't know what you're drinking, Brian, but we're going to give a little toast for a good 2024 season. It's something that I think we all hope there's no issues and so on. So,
for sure. Of course. Good call, Jim.
Straight vodka.
Jimmy, I want to tell you, before we get to the top 3, I'm very impressed with the research that you've done on this top 10 so far. Guys that I'm a little bit younger. I don't know a ton of the guys. I'm sure the little bit older audience really appreciates it. But it's impressive. You've dug deep in the bag for some of these guys.
I did. And I still got my number 1 guy at the top.
I can't wait.
We're all going to get a good laugh out of. So number 3, Jerry Brown.
Jerry Brown. One of my 2 nicest managers and people in general in softball, and just the control for the nicest guy. The only problem is he wears freaking Crocs, and I always give him a hard time with that. No adult man should ever wear a pair of Crocs, and that's just unacceptable, my opinion.
Sure.
No, it's just the nicest guy. And you see that from his teams, and that when he managed, and that when he was out at game and that when he was manager, there were never any issues with their team. I mean, he had everyone's under control. Everyone respected him. When he wasn't there, and that his teams were totally different. back in the day, and that all hell could break loose. But if Jerry was there, no one would get out of line. He just has demeanor. I don't know anyone that dislikes the man. He's just a stand-up, great human being.
Yep. No, I like Jerry. Every time we've always played against him, he's always been really cool with us. So absolutely no complaints. I agree with you there. Number 2, Stan the Man.
That's the other top guy. It's both of them. I can't say one more than the other.
Yep.
Just the God. I mean that guy. Such a sad. I mean, I remember being at his wake. I mean, I think we waited an hour and a half, 2 hours, and that it was packed, and that nothing but great thing. I mean, my dad knew him back in the insurance days for 40 years ago, and that before I knew him. Just again, everyone respected him. I mean, funny story with him once. I mean, he came out in a game and to argue a call. He comes running out, his hair just and that's
the white hair flopping.
Yeah, the flat. Yes, exactly. He comes out and he's like, "Just want to let you know," he's screaming at me in my face, like making a show, and that just want to let you know you got that call 100% right. I have to come out here to show support for my team, but you're 100% right. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. Thank you, everything. And I start laughing. Don't laugh. They can't see that you're laughing. And then I need to get my team fired up. But keep doing what you're doing. He runs up and then he goes back. I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
and then he was mad. He's like, hey, he came up. You know what, Ryan? I think you missed it. And that was it. But
yeah,
I lost that. Unbelievable person.
When we interviewed Jeff Berger a handful of weeks ago, he brought up Stan too, and Stan was one of probably the nicest guys per se in softball at that time. He was just an awesome dude. Ran that Impact team, in my day, and it just I don't know. There's not a bad thing you could really say about Stan. And I was fortunate
every year almost. The whole team was back every year. I mean, the team didn't argue much. I mean, everyone loved him.
Right.
And
Yep. No, absolutely. So my number 1 guy on the list tonight, I think it was an absolute must. We brought him up on the show. He wears a hoop earring. Every single person on our show actually said something bad about him because he didn't show up. He respectively declined the interview for our Hall of Fame ballot that we had the night on the show. He's never wrong. I don't care what you say.
I know where this is going right now. I know exactly what you're talking.
He's the guy who ran the umpire SSA meeting a couple weeks ago. I don't know. I mean, he's a guy I talked to the other day on the phone. We yelled at each other for the first 45 minutes back and forth. In the last 15 minutes, we were best friends. So neither one of us were listening to each other the first 45 minutes, but that's okay. Anthony Tyler.
I wouldn't expect any differently from you two.
Anthony Tyler. Number 1.
A great guy. Honestly, I mean, he, first of all, back in his day was one of the, I don't think he gets the respect as a player when people talk about the all-time greats. He really was. I mean, he was phenomenal. Fielder, hitting. He had a power. He was a tremendous player. But you're right. He's never wrong. I mean, I remember so many times when I was first starting out, probably like in Schiller Park, he played in house league games over there, and he told me once that I got out to play at second base, and call went against him, and he was in the field. He was like, "Hey, now you got the call wrong, but I can't argue. I mean, I can't argue with you at least, but you were out here. But you got it wrong, but I'm not going to yell at you because you got out here." And he would say stuff like that regularly, but also comments like, "Hey," and then he'd argue a call, and every single time it's like, I only argue when you're wrong, and like he's 100% right all the time. But I hope again he stays involved in the game. I know he had obviously kids growing up playing sports and all that. So but he's a great ambassador of the game. Besides the hoop earring, he's a little too old for that right now.
You
whatever.
Yeah, you would
probably
think
happy ASA doesn't enforce the rules of no earrings or backward hats like they used to back in the day.
Yeah, you would think he's bad with us. You should see him with Ralphie Lawrence. I was fortunate enough to play in the same infield as those two for many years, and
Yeah.
it was heated, boy. It was funny, but and Tyler always had to be a little bit better than Ralphie. It didn't matter. That's what I always got a kick out of those two. But they were great teammates, great people. So that was my top 10, my man. What'd you think of my top 10?
I think it was good.
Right,
a lot of
cool.
a lot of good names, people from the past. As Donnie said, some older people who are not around or not involved so much anymore, but people who did mean a lot in football overall.
Yep.
So.
Jimmy, did your research on that?
Yes, I did. So Donnie, do you have any more questions before we get to our final question for Mr. Panek?
That's it for me. I asked the couple that I wanted, and before Jimmy gets to the last one, Brian, we appreciate you coming on the show. We appreciate everybody for watching, and obviously the Beacon Tap for doing a great job on the sponsorship and just continuing to grow the game. And I know, Brian, that's what you want as well. So before Jimmy gets into it, you guys chat about that for a sec. I just want to say thanks and thank you guys for watching. And we've got a couple more things for tonight, but it's been fun so far.
Absolutely. Before I ask my last question, I want to say welcome to the feed, Mr. Michael Sexton, James Smith, who's, I believe, one of your umpires, correct? Russ DeLude, and along with Kenny Diggins. So welcome to the feed. Welcome to the Uncle Jimmy, Cousin Donnie show, sponsored by the Beacon Tap. I know the Beacon Tap's been on fire. Brian, have you been to the Beacon Tap ever?
I work in the Des Plaines. I work on the north end of Des Plaines. So I'm not that I'm there regularly. I can go home, but I've been there. Yeah, working in Des Plaines for 22 years. I mean, He's been in charge of it for new ownership, about 8-9 years now, maybe?
I would say, somewhere between 9 or 10 years.
But they definitely stepped it up. The food's so much better than it used to be over there. It's a great place to hang out at night with outdoor patio. For those who haven't gone, I mean, if you play in Des Plaines at Rand, it's right there, Mount Prospect, right there. It's a great place to hang out.
100%. So my last question, Brian, to you is a question that I ask every single guest on the show because it's about making our game better. It's about improving what we currently have now to make, the future better per se. But the question goes like this. It's if you had one thing or anything on mind that you wanted to change today or bring into softball to improve the game, what would it be?
Okay. I would give 2 if that's fine.
I don't think we've ever had a guest give 2. Have we, Donnie?
2. You've watched the show before, Brian, so you knew the question.
I have watched. I'm a silent person. I don't normally make comments or anything. I sit back and then listen.
I'm okay with that. We know you're watching. So
you're the first guest ever with 2 answers.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, I was getting to say you've done your research. I got it.
The first thing I would say, and I think it's getting better, is the 2 associations getting together and working everything out. For years, I've basically tried to play Switzerland. I'm in charge of umpires. I don't care if it's ASA, SSA, whatever it is. We're umpires. Just like in college basketball, and that Big Ten official also works for the Big East, ACC. They work for different conferences. So looking at it that way.
Right.
And so I'd never pick sides, try to work with both groups and everything, because umpires don't care. But for the best of softball, getting together, and we've made strides here. I mean, now at least nationals, teams don't have to choose, and that between one or the other, they want to play both. They're able to play both. They're on different weekends now for the second year in a row, which is a good step forward. And I know there were a lot of bridges burned back in the day, and Reasons Association, as we said earlier, for the SSA to start, made again understand why people thought that way, and I think it was good for softball. But now it's a time to try to bring everyone together. Again, still have the 2 associations. There's nothing wrong with the 2 associations, but working together in that instead of completely separate. And then the other thing for softball, which is I think big, moving that forward. I mean, this is all very helpful. The live shows, the streaming on Facebook, and that Donnie do, Adam at Forest Park, Geo does. I mean, so many more people are a part of it. I think it is hurting attendance at stuff because people are able to watch it on thing. But it is good overall for the growth of the game itself.
Right.
But the other thing is getting it back on TV, and that like it was back before I was even umpiring. And that, I mean, freaking, they have professional tag on TV now.
Yep.
I mean, the stuff that on sports, I mean, there's no reason 16 softball can't be, and need to get in the right ears of people to get that regionalized more than anything for Chicago, then looking overall, but getting it bigger back in Chicago, and actually talking about with like getting it back on. Back in the day, obviously, you had Mike North on, who and that heavily involved. Steve Cashel broadcasted all the time. Steve Cashel is going to be umpiring this year, and that for me.
Really?
Moving forward. So I work with him on the Golf Scene Show. He's going to be umpiring. Obviously, he won't be doing the high major level right away, but he's involved, and he wants to. His kids are older now. He wants to get involved in umpiring. So you're playing in house leagues this year. You might just see Steve himself out doing the games. So I'm looking forward to that.
I was on the golf scene as well, Brian. I was on the golf scene with Steve Cashel. So that's another thing we've gotten comments. I was like on two different episodes.
Nice.
So
Steve's a great guy.
We're famous guys.
He's another guy that's on our list. So it's another.
You should contact him. I mean, he's just like Mike North back in the day with everything. Obviously, I'm seeing the Chicago 6-inch Hall of Fame.
Yeah, we want to bring Steve on. We've contacted offline. He just, started following us a little bit. So it's something that, we're going to be reaching out to him as well. So hopefully he'll have some time for us in the next couple of weeks. I think he'll be a great, person to have on the show to talk about, to your point, getting softball back on TV and what those steps look like to get some type of TV time somewhere down the road. So,
and Steve would be a first great point of contact with that.
Yep.
And how, that's like the golf scene. Talk about that show. They pay to be on and have their advertisers pay them. That's how they make the money. But they pay for their slots. So there is opportunity. It just takes some money, and God, obviously he has some connections. It wouldn't hurt to talk to him about that in more detail.
Yeah, we'd have to. I think the first step with all that is getting involved with the TV station, whether it be ESPN or
that one's on Comcast Sportsnet.
Comcast is the first thing. Localized, to me, that'd be easier.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna find out like what times you can run it and all that stuff. I think they would have that information, and then we can get an idea of how we can operate it and move forward. I think that'd be really cool, just from the standpoint of growing our game. And I know Donnie and I have been pumped about the news we got last Tuesday about Rosmondo, them coming to major nationals this year. That's the best 12-inch team in softball. Been the best 12-inch team for the last 10 years. You're talking guys that are just absolute stud athletes. So I guess it's with a glove. It's not our technically, we say our true sport, but it's still an opportunity to grow our game and to get more people playing 16-inch softball, which is more to me like baseball than any other sport there is outside of baseball. So it's an absolute, to me, it's an absolute awesome thing to continue to grow our game. And to your first point, getting everyone on the same page, I think is key. I don't know if the ASA and SSA would ever work together, but you made me think of something like, how do they work together though? That's the thing. Like they got sponsors. They don't, they're at the point now where they're not running tournaments on the same weekend, which I think is a plus. They're working together with that. But, what else do we really need to see? I think we've had some SSA guys get into the Hall of Fame recently in regards to what I mean into the building. I don't really know what more can they possibly do. I mean, it seems like they're cordial now. They
are more cordial. I mean, there's no reason not to be. I mean, SSA has a good product. They've done a lot for softball. And both other side too. A good corporation, a good company does not need a bad mouth. The other either that type of stuff. It has slowed down a lot, but there's no need to do that. If you have a good product, you don't have to bad mouth the other, and that stand on your laurels and what you have done instead of try and talk negative about something. I mean, like we're asked all the time at the golf center, for example, about Top Golf. Oh, Top Golf's a great organization, and that it's its place in golf. It's entertainment. Now, the practically no, but it's a lot of fun and people like it. They're not competitive. We go back and forth talking with them on different ideas and different things both ways. They're both. It's great. There's no reason to talk negatively about the competition, and hopefully that continues more and more throughout. And I don't know, but teams shouldn't have to feel they have to pick one or the other. I guess right. Trying to force people to play one or the other. Play whatever you want.
Really, really quick. Sorry, Jimmy, to cut you off. We had a comment come in from Tim Dalton really fast. If you just throw us a name out there, we want to make sure we're getting these guys involved for commenting, and we appreciate them commenting. Throw us a name really quick. He said, can you ask Brian, as an umpire, is there a player that he looked forward to umping to watch also more than any other player? Sorry, Jimmy, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure.
No, that's what I was going to tell you to do is read the comments.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I would two that come off to my head right away. Mark Holstein, the guy a freaking beast hitting the ball, and one of the nicest guys that played softball too. And then in Little B, because Little B can do everything, and that his speed. I mean, some of the catches he's made in big games or in any game, but big games is just you end up watching it as almost like a fan watching the catch. Like, how the hell did he do that? And even his power for a little guy hits the ball. I mean, balls that are doubles for people are home runs for him. It's just it's unreal what he has done over the years.
Yep, absolutely. Those are two really good. I love Marky. I mean, Lil B's great. It's funny, those guys are opposite animals in their skill levels. Marky can hit the ball a million miles. Lil B can cut it. I mean, it's fun to watch both of them play for different reasons.
Now, Holstein had a lot more homers than he probably should have because with Kubicki in charge at Hodgkins back in the day, them having majority of their games at Hodgkins with the short porch in right field was not really fair. But besides that,
but I'd hate to say this, he probably hit out of most parks in those.
He probably would. Yes,
that's true.
So what I'm going to ask you here, Brian, now is the time where you can ask Uncle Jimmy and Cousin Donnie your questions. I know you wanted to jump the gun earlier, but now's your time.
Okay. Well, first of all, what you guys are doing, I think, is really good. Getting people engaged throughout especially the off season, and looking forward during the year, keeping people engaged and looking forward to softball on a regular basis. But you're talking about umpire, and that for you, Jim, what umpire do you actually have liked or not yelled at ever in your career?
Ooh, that's a great question.
A short list.
That is a short list.
Is there even a list on it?
Do you remember little Jimmy? Older Jimmy. He works the park leagues now. I can't think of Jimmy's last name.
Older guy?
Yeah, walks with somewhat of a limp.
Jim Akinpora?
What was it?
Jim Akinpora?
Yes. I back in the day, he used to ump some of the bigger events. I believe he donates all his check to charity. I believe it is, if I'm correct. Most of what he umps.
Yeah, I don't know if he does or not. Yeah.
He used to ump all the time in Archer Park for us on Sundays. He did everything. I mean, he was awesome from a standpoint. Now he's a little older now. Like he's got to be. If I had to guess, I think he's still umping though, but he's got to be in his 70s.
I think he's still doing a few leagues out there, right?
Yeah. So I would say he's probably the one guy that he makes some bad calls. I could just never yell at him. And now,
I may have to call him and find out what his trick was, so you don't know.
And now in today's major game, like guys that ump are major all the time, I really can't think of one.
Oh, God.
That's fair. So
maybe if I see
you, question, I mean, that's the only question I came. I don't have really any questions too much for you.
Not
guys.
One, Jimmy. You don't. Man, that's tough. You definitely don't like Danny Graff. I know that for sure.
How about Danny putting it in the comments right now? It's sure not me. I'm the dome because
That's right. He hears it every week. That's great.
Hey, you know what though? I mean, like I said, I'm passionate about what I do, and if I didn't care, my guys behind me wouldn't know what to do. So they wouldn't know what to think of me. Put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't argue all the time. I only argue, like, to your point, when you feel like, dude, that's a terrible call. You know, or like a guy's like literally has something against you and he's calling it one way because it's like he's mad at you. You know.
I do think a lot with that, people do feel that way. I always try to tell people when people are arguing with it, and that they're looking at it through kind of like goggles, and that from their lens, from their perspective. Just like, hey, when I watch a University of Illinois basketball game, and that in particular, I'm looking at it. The referees fucking suck if Illinois loses. Besides some, embarrassment. Either way, and that, but you look at it through your perspective only, and not really what it is. And if you were officiating a game, I think sometimes you would see things different. Not all the time, obviously. There's times not, but there's each team always feels they're always getting screwed, and then when it's not, the umpires don't care. The bottom line is not care is not the right word to say on that, but they're not making calls one way or the other because they like one team, don't maybe like a team or a player in particular. The call is a call, and then I think people think too much. They're making that call because they don't like. That's not the case. I'm not saying that never happens. I'm not in everyone's head or that, but I could honestly tell you, like, that's not with me. Like I said earlier, an umpire referee should quit the first time they make a call based on that. They should never do a game again because that's not okay. And so many calls are bang bang. Even if you tried, you couldn't. Honestly, doing it, you couldn't do it.
Those are tough.
No, absolutely. So, well, Brian, I appreciate it. If you don't have any more questions for us, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you jumping on, answering a lot of tough questions. I know we put you on the spot on a lot of things, but we definitely appreciate how you responded and what we're hearing. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of new changes coming up this year, which I think is, even a better thing for softball in regards to controlling games out there, which is awesome to hear. And we look forward to some of the new umpires. Hopefully, they're reading the rules.
Yeah, and everyone else. I mean, if you know people are wanting to involve, some of the best umpires are former players, and then players the majority of the rules already, and you're passionate about the game and like the game, and those want to stay around. I'm not saying every former player is a good umpire. I mean, one of the former and that Ben Holt was one of a tremendous player, and that hit the ball. And he was a horrible umpire. I mean,
look at this.
He would tell you stories about how good he was when he was umpiring in like rec games, and they're like, "What is major softball? What are you talking about?" They're in their co-record. He's talking about how far he hit the ball in the Forest Park National. Great guy, just not a good umpire.
Yeah.
But majority of them are good. I mean, like you talked earlier, mentioned like I haven't seen Robbie Grisano, but I've heard nothing but positive things that him and umpire. Kurt Ostrom umpires for me. As loudmouth as he is out in left field, and that he's a really good umpire. And that he's a tremendous umpire. He cares. Yeah. He hustles out there, and I hope when he's done playing, hopefully it's a while for him. But when he's done playing, hopefully he moves to umpiring regularly and moving to the top level. And
absolutely,
he does a fantastic job. So.
Well, like I said, Brian, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on our show. Can't thank you enough. So thank you.
You got it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Brian. We'll see you soon. All right, man. Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you. So what'd you think of Mr. Panek?
Fantastic. He dropped some news for us on the show that with the SSA making the decision to throw people out that are coming out of the dugouts. That's news that I didn't know about. I'm sure a lot of managers are going to learn about that from our show, which is great, right? Yep. That's great to see that we're kind of spreading that around. And selfishly, obviously, I want us to get the breaking news. But that's cool for the game, right? It's definitely going to be argued. That's for sure. But the argument
any changes.
Correct. Any changes argued. Right. Brian was great. He got a lot of positive feedback in the comments. He probably doesn't hear a whole lot of positivity while umpiring because he just gets argued with constantly. But it was a nice, refreshing time for him to be on here and get to talk positively for a while. So, Jimmy, I have to applaud you on your top 10 again. Just digging deep in the research. I think he appreciated that a lot. What did you think of Brian's time here with us?
You know what? I thought that there was a lot of good that came out of tonight. I think for a lot of the players that I know watch our show, a lot of the major guys that watch, A guys and B guys that watch, I think the one thing I think that kind of jumps through the screen is just they're really preaching the respect for the umpire, right? I think that's the biggest thing to me. That's my biggest takeaway. You know, even as a host per se of the show with you, is that it's just more of the respect of the umpire and really understanding that, hey, you know, they're going to blow a ton of calls. We just hope that they're not in the crucial spots.
We just hope that they're not in our games.
Well, right. That's part of it. You never want a game to end on an umpire's call, but
yeah, it's true.
We've had a lot of calls that unfortunately change momentum, or that those things happen. That's part of the game. I just hope that doesn't happen for us. That's all. So
I agree. Yeah, Brian was great. We appreciated having him on there. What a good time chatting with him.
Absolutely. We got a couple minutes left. Okay.
Yeah.
I know we have the terrific three people that have been following us. A terrific three. I'm 6-3 right now. I went 2-1 again last week. Arizona dropped the ball for me. Covered every game. Didn't cover last week, but that's okay. What we're gonna do this week is I'm gonna give you my 3 picks of what's left in the NCAA tournament for the Final Four. And then what I'm going to do starting next week, we're going to get back to the NBA and maybe throw a pick or two out for baseball here and there. So just right off the top of my head, it's going to be UConn NC State final. I think Purdue gets beat. I think NC State has been the hottest team in the country. Take UConn out of it, of course. They've been absolutely on fire. I love the big dude. I love their
TJ Burner.
Yeah, I love Burner. I love their guard play with Horn, and Donnie, the other big white guy that comes off the bench here and there. He's incredible. So I think NC State has enough size to compete with Purdue. Okay, and
that's
then
the thing.
Purdue's, I think those guards are going to get in those guards' faces for Purdue. And Purdue's going to have a little bit of tough shooting night from 3-point, from the range. So I'm thinking UConn, I think they blow out Alabama. They've won, I think, 27 games in a row by double digits or whatever the hell it is. They're going to win the national title, but I think it's going to be UConn, NC State. I don't know what that line's going to be. Obviously, UConn's going to hold the national title in the long run. But I'm going to go UConn, NC State on the line next week. And then if UConn and NC State play each other, I'm guessing that line's going to be probably anywhere between 10.5 and 12.5 for a national title game. I mean, how do you bet against UConn?
Can't. Right? They're tough. They're so good. I mean, going back to your point about the big guys from NC State, that's been everybody's problem with Iowa, is they can't stop the size of Zach Edey. And now you've got 2 guys. They've got DJ Burns and Diarra, who's another big dude for NC State down at the bottom. Right. If they continue to play good ball, Purdue's damn good with Edey at 40 points. I mean, he can't be stopped by somebody of the high. DJ Burns is a strong dude. And I think Burns will get his. I think he's going to score points because he's mobile for his size, right? So it'll be interesting to see. I do have one. I have a couple picks for you. I have a baseball pick that I need everybody to ride with me tomorrow. I've been really good in the baseball slate for the first couple games. I know baseball pretty well. I've got the Baltimore Orioles play tomorrow, and they are -1.5. And they have Corbin Burns on the mound, who they newly acquired from the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to take the Baltimore Orioles -1.5 in that game. Burns in his first game shut out the Angels. They scored 8 runs for him. The Orioles are damn good, and he's a fantastic option for them as their new number 1.
Nice. I like it. We'll definitely play it. I might even go to the sports book right now and play it.
That's the motivation I needed.
So, but that is my terrific three. What are the other two plays, Donnie?
I was going to ask you what your professional opinion is on the women's basketball slate of Iowa and UConn with Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers. That's drawing attention. What do you think?
How do you bet against Iowa? How do you bet against her?
Tough.
I don't even know what the line is, but how do you bet against her?
I know. If anyone can stop him, it might be Gino Auriemma. I mean, he's a legendary coach. He's got Beckers, who's maybe the best player second best player in NCAA basketball.
Right.
For women, right? So, Caitlin Clark is she's unbelievable to watch. The shots she hits are contested. They're deep. There's clips of Van Lith from LSU. Like, what am I supposed to do here? She's playing good defense from 40 feet away.
Right.
Caitlin's unbelievable. So I was curious to see your opinion. It might be UConn in that game. Don't be shocked if UConn beats Iowa.
I wouldn't be shocked either way, but I can't bet against my girl from Iowa. There's no way.
She's a dog.
So, no, I agree. I agree. So that's my educated opinion. I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's what I'm going with. So I'm going with UConn to cover. I'm going with NC State to cover. If NC State loses the game, I'm going with UConn either way to cover against NC State or Purdue. So those are my terrific three for the Final Four. Obviously, everyone have a safe week. A lot of things going on this week. We got WrestleMania this week, right?
Can you bet on WrestleMania?
I don't know if a sportsbook has it. I heard a handful of years ago there was people out there, sportbooks, taking bets on WrestleMania. I'm sure there's hard. Somebody.
It's hard because it's technically staged, right? So you can maybe figure out who it is.
Right.
If you have a source who has I guess you can kind of cheat the system there. But that would be fun to bet on. If you didn't really know a ton about it or just got assigned a random wrestler.
Right.
I think that would be kind of fun. What's up, Rich Rizzo? Good to see you.
Yep. Good to see you, Rich. Appreciate your joining on late here. Great show tonight. We had Mr. Panek on, so, obviously rewind, watch the show. We're about to sign off now. So next week, we'll release who our next guest is towards in the next couple of days for next Tuesday night. And we look forward to seeing everyone next Tuesday.
Yes, sir. Jimmy, we'll talk to you. Thanks, Mal. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Donnie. Thank you so much.